It's annoying, but it's a bot, and it cannot go on any longer. Hang it up, flat screen. I would have dragged you regardless. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, this is a February wrap-up where I talk about all the things that I watched and read in February. We can get right on into it. I read a lot of books this month. Actually, I read so many books this month. I am making a vow to myself to read less books. I don't ever want to read as many books as I read this month ever again. I just feel like there is so much media to consume, and I do not need to spend as much time as I spent in February reading so many books. But I made the promise to myself to read books that I have put off for so long, and so it causes me just to read all day. Like, I remember February, we're in March now, I remember February and just sitting down and just reading all day long. Like, I would try to finish entire novels in one sitting. It was too much. It was too much. I did not enjoy it. It made me dislike, it made me give lower ratings to books that I probably would have enjoyed if I didn't like try to get through it so bad. But anyways, so the first thing that I read is I read 5 books for a video that I posted last month. It was my last vlog of February where I discussed 5 books. I'm just gonna run through them real quick, and then you can go get in-depth thoughts about these books over on that vlog because I went into detail about all of them. So the first one is by Rachan, I don't know. The Boyfriend Project. I give this book a 2.53 out of 5 stars. It was decent, like whatever. The next book that I read was Sweet Hand by N.J. Peltier. I gave this book 2.53 out of 5 stars as well. The next book that I read was Make a Scene by Mimi Grace. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry. I have absolutely adored this book. If you don't leave here with any recommendations, this is one of the books I would highly recommend. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It is a young adult romance book, which I don't even like. I don't even like young adult books, period, but I definitely don't like young adult romance, but we're going to get into that thought in a second, but like, loved it, 5 out of 5 stars. And my favorite book that I read this entire month goes to Charming as a Verb by Ben Felipe. Ben Felipe, if you are watching this video, which you are not, I would love a sequel of them in college. Like, I would love a sequel of them in their late college years. I just would. I need more. What is the main guy's name in this book? Henry. I need more Henry. Henry is probably one of my favorite heroes, like, of all time. It was just so wholesome. That's the thing. If you're gonna get me to read young adult romance, I need to be wholesome. I need to be sweet. And that's what this was. Henry was just so wholesome. He was just so sweet. And so, like, I loved it. Kids in love. What can you say? Anyway, so those are the books that I read. So I read a bunch of books for Black History Month. So my goal was to just read a bunch of Black History Month books. And then, yeah, but Black History Month started off as a flop. It started off as a flop, and I can't lie. So I pivoted. I pivoted for a few books and read non-Black History Month books, and I'm going to get into those real quick. Okay, so a book that I gave 5 out of 5 stars, The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I have never read Mexican Gothic, and I believe they came out with another book. I'm not sure, but The Beautiful Ones was the first book that I read. How do I describe The Beautiful Ones? The Beautiful Ones is a book that's actually really about nothing, but like, that's the beauty of it. So you have, this takes place back in the day, and you have this guy who is able to, like, I think his name is Hector. Is his name Hector? It is Hector. Hector is able to levitate things with his mind. Well, he meets Nina. He meets this girl named Nina at a party, and they get to talking back and forth, and they get a fling. So he decides that he is going to court Nina. Well, we realize that he wants to court Nina because back in the day, he had a nice little fling with Nina's aunt, I guess, Nina's aunt Valerie, but Nina's aunt Valerie is not really, it's really her cousin. I think they call each other cousins, but they're not real cousins. They're cousins through marriage. Anyways, and so basically Valerie and Hector used to have a relationship, and so he's trying to win Valerie back because Valerie left him for a man with more money, which is Nina's uncle or cousin, something like that. And so basically you're following these people who are all trying to like figure out their lives and their relationship woes, and beautiful. Beautiful. I explained it terribly, but just hear me out. Just hear me out. I loved this book. I ate this book up. I remember reading this book at my mother's house and staying up till 4 a.m. because I had to finish her. I had to finish her. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, loved it. The next book that I read, which has nothing to do with Black history, is by B.A. Paris, the therapist. Me and B.A. Paris have a love-hate relationship. Like, even B.A., I've never given a B.A. Paris book, like, more than, like, 3 or 4 stars. But, like, I always enjoy the ride. It's the ending that I hate. And The Therapist is no different. I gave The Therapist 2.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, so this book follows a couple. A couple who are not married. They just live together. They move into this home, and so they host a party at this home the first night that they move into it, and some uninvited visitor comes to the party. And so the woman in this book is trying to figure out, why did this person come to the party? Well, the person who came to the party shows up to her house and is like, hey, I'm a private detective and I want to know what happened to the woman who used to live in this apartment, because something is not right. Something is not okay, and I need to know what happened to the woman who died in this apartment. Well, our main character, she was not aware that anyone died in this apartment, but her husband was. So she confronts her boyfriend. She confronts her boyfriend. It's like, how come you didn't tell me no one died in this house? And he was like, because I know how much you wanted to live here and the house was cheaper because someone died in it. So she gets pissed off and she's done with the husband, but she's trying to figure out what happened to this therapist that used to live in this apartment. It was a nice ride. It was a nice ride. You quickly figure out what's going on. Like, the plot twist isn't a plot twist because you're like, you know what's going on in this story. So it didn't hit for me. I enjoy other B.A. Paris books more. It was just a little flat. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but this book probably would have got a 4 out of 5 stars, but I waited too long to finish it. I read the first 75% like in the middle of February and finished the last 25% on the first day of March, I believe. So like, I took too long to read it, and when you take too long to read a romance, you forget what you loved about the first half that you read. Anyway, so this book follows a woman who basically submits her DNA into a company to see who her soulmate is, and she matches up with the CEO of the company, and they are like off the charts a romantic link. So they decide to get publicity for this guy's company. They're going to date, and they're going to see if if this stuff really works. Are they soulmates? And so that's how you get the soulmate equation. They go through things. From what I remember, it was nice. It was nice. It's just I read the last 25% and I didn't love the last 25%, but I believe when I was reading it back in February, I was going to give this a 4 star. I was enjoying it, but it was very cute. Christina Lauren, the duo that they are, they can give you a nice romance. I am still the Unhoneymooners truther. I love that book, and so this was cute. It was cute. It had a lot of moments. Okay, back to Black History Month. So those are the only books not by Black authors that I read this month. We have to figure something out when it comes to popular Black books that are like written by Black people. They are so boring. Either they're boring, they're ridiculous, and some are great. I have some great finds in here, but there are some other ones where I'm like, how did this book get published? Like, I don't know if this is for the mainstream girlies. I don't know if a lot of the mainstream Black adult books are being made for Black people. I kind of feel like they're being made for white people to get to understand Black people, and I don't want to read that. Like, it's just, we're going to start with the bad ones, because there's 2 that are just bad. There's one that's like embarrassingly bad. Like, I could not stand it. And this is no shade to nobody who wrote any of these. I got respect for everybody. But like, the other black girl is not worth the paper that it is printed on. And I mean that with all respect to Zakiya Delia Harris. This book follows a Black woman who works in a publishing house. And so she's working at this publishing house and she's being hit with all types of microaggressions. And then one day, another black girl comes and works at the job. And she's very excited that this black girl is working at the job until she gets a note of someone asking her to leave the job. And so now she's weary of everyone around her and she's trying to figure out, is this black girl really an ally? Are we in this together, or is everyone conspiring to try to get me to quit this job? Let me show you guys where the plot starts to this book. This is your plot. You could read just this part right here and you would know everything that happens in this book. The plot starts in the last 10% of this book. So you spend the first 90% just peddling through mess. And here is the thing. This does this thing where it's like, I know something you don't know. You're very aware that you're not supposed to have all the information. Like, there's clearly a plot twist going on that is being hidden from you, and that's why nothing makes sense in the first 90%. We're switching timelines, and you're like, if you just told me what the plot twist was, this would probably be more interesting. But because you're trying to thinly veil a plot twist, a catch-22 moment, a Twilight Zone moment, a Get Out moment, I'm not interested in nothing that's going on. I just want to know what the fuck could be happening here. And so there's nothing going on. It's so boring. It is so it's excruciating how boring this book is, the first 90%. Like, you're just like, what in the hell? And then another thing, like, we can discuss, in a lot of these black books I read, they just throw around black pop culture references. It's just like Janet Jackson, Beyonce, Boyz II Men. Like, they're just throwing around black references because why not? Because let me remind you that this is about black people. So we're just throwing out references. Sister, Martin, like, spare me. And so 90% of the book is just black reference to black reference. We're switching timelines. And then you get the plot twist. Spoiler alert. Black women are turned into coons via hair grease. That's the plot twist. I'm going to just tell you because I don't want you to read this book. Black women are being turned into coons via hair grease. And there's just a coalition of black women all over the globe trying to get other black women to put hair grease on their hair so they can stop being so damn difficult and succeed in corporate America. I could slap somebody. I could spit. I could slap somebody. This was a waste of fucking, like, I was miserable reading this book, but I knew it was a catch-22 moment. So I'm like, what's going on here? Because it just can't be this boring. And then when I got to what was going on, I said, you done lost your fucking mind. You done lost your fucking mind. Let's move on to another book I did not enjoy. The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. What a beautiful cover for a not so beautiful book. So this book follows a girl who lives in Los Angeles at the time of the Rodney King verdict, when Rodney King was a victim of police brutality in Los Angeles, and everyone saw the video, and then his cops would be acquitted of their crime. So you have this girl who, like, she grew up around a bunch of white people, and so she kind of felt like she was a part of the white crew, but she always knew something was different. She would get racially profiled over her white friends, and so there's black kids at her school, but she doesn't feel like she really fits in with them. And so when the Rodney King verdict comes out, and the line has been drawn, black people, white people, she feels like an outsider. She feels like, oh my gosh, I need to get in touch with my black roots or whatever. The synopsis I just gave you actually is something up my alley. I would be willing to see how a black person who, like, assimilated into white culture finally, like, comes into her own, realizing, like, oh, I'm black, and what that means, and what it means to get in touch with blackness and have black friends and be in community with other black people. But that's not what this book is. The book hardly even touches on the idea of, like, the Rodney King verdict and her, like, getting in touch with other black kids. It's pretty much just about this black girl and her white friends and their last few months of, like, high school, them being seniors in high school. There's a side plot about her sister, which is more about the Rodney King stuff because her sister is protesting, but it really didn't have anything to do with any of that. And there is a quote in this book. I'm gonna say what the quote is. I can't say it verbatim, but she has to pee really badly, and so she says, whenever I have to pee, I pretend like I'm a runaway slave and I have to be very quiet so I don't get caught. And that's my problem with a lot of these black books. Like, what? What? Who writes that? Who is that written for? Who is that written for? Who is that written for? It was just ridiculous. This book wasn't as ridiculous as the other black girl. I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. I gave the other black girl 1 out of 5 stars. I give it 0 if I could. I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. It's just because it wasn't interesting. Like, the best friends of the characters are boring. Like, all her little white friends are just boring and flat. Like, they're like ridiculous. Like, they just say the N-word and stuff. It's ridiculous. And so, no, this was not one for me. A lot of people like this book. I ain't one of them. The next book that I read was The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. I'm giving this book 2.5, maybe 3 stars, whatever. So this book is about a girl who gets left at the altar. She gets left at the altar. She runs a wedding, I think she's like a wedding planner. And so she gets left at the altar at her own wedding. Well, she wants to become a wedding planner for a big company. And so she goes in for the interview and she realizes that her ex-fiance and his brother work for the company that she wants to become an employee of. And so they decide to act like they don't know each other, act like there's nothing between them, nothing ever happened. Well, the brother-in-law, her would-have-been brother-in-law, they decide to work close together because she can't really work with her ex-fiance. And so things happen. The last part of this book is a lot more interesting than the first part. The first part makes you want to DNF it. It's bad. It's boring, it's bad, you're like, who gives a fuck? But the last part is really cute. Once the brother-in-law and the girl who gets jilted at the altar, once they start becoming one, it's actually pretty interesting. They go on a retreat together, which I love it. I love a retreat. So the ending is better than that. This is inoffensive. It's inoffensive. It's an interracial romance, which you know how I feel about them. But it was fine. It was fine. The next book that I gave 3 out of 5 stars to is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This is more of a me issue than this book issue. So Honey Girl follows a biracial girl who got married in Vegas to a random girl. She don't even really remember much about the girl. So she is on the lookout for this girl that she got married to in Vegas. And she finds the girl working. She finds the girl because the girl is working at a radio station and she sends out messages to her via the radio, if you're the girl, da-da-da-da. And so we begin this self-identity story of this girl who goes to live with the woman that she married, and then all these things, trying to step into her own. She's also an astronomer, I believe. She's getting her PhD in astronomy, and so she's dealing with this idea of not being enough and all of that stuff. This book, like I said, it's beautifully written, it's flowery, it's all of these things. It just never had any depth for me. The marriage, the wedding is an off-scene marriage. It happens before the book even starts. So when she goes to live with her wife, we don't know their relationship. So we're just thrusted into this relationship and this girl saying how much she loves this woman, and they're hitting beats, but you never feel like you're a part of their relationship or you root for their relationship in any way, because you're I don't know y'all. We just started a book and all of a sudden y'all was madly in love with each other. We weren't there in Vegas, and there's no flashbacks to Vegas either. It's just we got married in Vegas because we fell in love. It's too much, and the love interest never felt real. The way the love interest is described, it just never feels real. She's described too flowery, almost like she's she's an idea, she's a spirit, more than she's a real human being. She has no flaws. Her and her friends go looking for ghosts, of the wife. They go looking for ghosts and stuff. It never seemed real. It was too flowery. It wasn't rugged enough for me. There was nothing to hang on to. So yes, beautifully written. Love the sapphic aspect, but it just didn't hit all the beats for me. So I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. Definitely inoffensive. It wasn't the worst book by far that I read. All the books I'm getting into now were inoffensive. It was fine. The next book that I read was Dear Haiti, Love Elaine. This is written by a duo, Maika and Maritza Molit. Let me tell you something, baby. These two were having too much fun writing this book. I literally dog-eared certain portions of this book because I have to explain to you guys the ridiculousness of, you have emails in this book, y'all can't see, you have emails in this book, text messages, journal entries, essays, like it is so stylized that it's ridiculous, like postcards, I don't know, like it's so stylized. And the thing is, like, in hindsight, you're like, okay, cute because I read it, but reading it was just too much. It like, not only is the postcard stylized, but like it's in a different font than the rest, so I can barely even read what it says. And you would think, usually when books have stuff like this, like books within a book, essays within a book and stuff, I skim over them like I'm not listening to them. You cannot skim over these. Everything in these is so essential. There is a journal entry in this book that reroutes the entire book. So if you don't read the journal entry, if you're skimming over the stuff, you quite literally will miss why the book just takes a tone shift and turns into this magical realism thing. Let me tell you what this book is about. This book is about a girl who basically goes to this like school ran by, I believe, nuns, and she lives in America, I believe, or maybe she lives in Canada. America or Canada. She lives in one of the two, whatever. And she like basically almost accidentally kills a boy trying to do an experiment in class. And so her parents ship her off to go live in Haiti. And so she goes to Haiti to like get in touch with her roots. Now that sounds interesting. A girl who like has to go off to Haiti to go get in touch with her roots and go live with like her mother, because her mother lives in Haiti. She lives with her dad in America. That sounds perfectly interesting. No, because it doesn't know what it wants to be. This book wants to be so many different things. It wants to be a getting back to your roots story. It wants to be this magical realism story. It wants to be this generational curse breaking story. And so it's nothing. It's nothing. It's not doing any of those things well. If it did just one of those things, fine. But it does none of those things well. So it just did not work for me. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Nothing to hold on to. I can barely remember how it ended. Like, I don't know. It just wasn't that great to me. The next book that I read was The Vanishing Half. I said that this book better change my life the way you guys were carrying on about The Vanishing Half. And unfortunately, this book did not change my life. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. If you don't know what The Vanishing Half is about, you've been living under a rock, but actually I didn't really know what The Vanishing Half was about until I read it. So this book is about 2 sisters who are very, very light skinned. They grew up in this town that prides itself on having light skin. And so basically when these 2 girls come of age, they basically go on 2 different paths. One of the sisters goes and lives as a white woman, and another one of the sisters ends up getting married to a dark skinned guy who abuses her, and she has a baby with him. And so they're living 2 totally different lives for decades. And so you're following the sisters through their life, then you're following their children, and it's all of that. No. This book had moments of greatness for me. Moments of greatness. The first chapter, who is the sister who's passing, her first POV chapter is a work of art. But this book fizzles into nothing for me. By the way, this is like my favorite genre of book. Like these intergenerational, multi-generational traumas through the decades. That's my favorite type of book. If you want to recommend me a book, recommend me a book about Black people going through generational trauma through years, decades. Love it every single time. But this, I've just seen it done better. And I love Passing. I love the book Passing. It is one of my favorite classics of all time. And so what's cute next to gorgeous? Like Passing is gorgeous. I'm sorry. It's perfectly written. Like, and so this, I'm just like, I've seen these same topics discussed better in other novels. I just have. And so it was fine. This is a perfectly fine book. And I can see why people love this book. It just, for me, it didn't hit the mark for me. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Not offensive at all. Perfect read. I didn't want to stop it at any point. But like, I was waiting. I'm okay with the journey being the destination. Those types of books where the journey is the destination. But to me, this book, the journey wasn't that great. Like once we start switching to the POV chapters of the kids, I really got uninterested. Because I'm just like, so I just wanted to, like, I don't know. If The Vanishing Half was not great for me, I am going to reread it. I told myself I'm going to reread it to see what more I could get from it. But on first read, was not greatly impressed. There were certain moments in this book that are strokes of greatness, like written so well. This book is written better than most of the books I read this month, can't lie. So then we have 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, which was an unexpected hit for me. For some reason, I have put this book off. I bought this book maybe 2020, early 2021. When did it even come out? I bought this book a long time ago. And I've just been putting it off because I don't know, I just did. So this book follows 2 people who write books. One writes like a popular like romance series, think Twilight, kind of writes stuff like that. It has multiple books in the series and she's very successful. Then you have this guy who writes more like lit content, more literary fiction type stuff. And so basically, the guy who writes literary fiction, he's like really like popular, he's really like well known, but he's kind of an alcoholic and he's kind of like dropped off the face of the earth recently. And so then you have this girl who's like, even though her books are successful, she doesn't really get like critical praise because like she writes books like Twilight, you know? And so basically they meet back up at a thing that's being held for like a bunch of writers where people are getting awards. They meet back up, and so there's obviously history between them, and so we go back and forth in like their life. We go back to when these 2 people met each other, and then we go back to 7 Days in June where they're like rekindling their romance. This book was absolutely it was so surprising. It's going to go on my most surprising books of the year because I went in here thinking this was just going to be like, it wasn't going to hit the beat for me. It wasn't going to have the depth that I wanted. It wasn't going to hit me the way I think the book was going to try to intend for it to hit me, but it did. It really did. I found this to be very charming and to have so much heart, and it was sad in moments, but it just felt like 30-something-year-olds trying to find their way. 2 people who knew each other in the past and are trying to meet each other as adults, you know? And I don't know, it worked for me. It just really worked for me. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Like, of course I had the things I didn't like about it. At this moment, I can't remember. Go to Goodreads and find out what my thoughts were. But in the moment where I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking about the couple of days I spent reading this book, I really fucking enjoyed it. I did. It was just really surprising how much I didn't want to leave the story. And then when the book did end, I was like, that was time well spent, which is so rare. It is so rare in a lot of these black books that I read in February to just say that was time well spent. This was a story worth telling, and that's what this was. Like, it's not gonna stay with me for the rest of my life, but it's something I'd reread. It is, and it's something that like I think a lot of people should read. Like, I don't know, like it wasn't flowery, but it wasn't dark enough to where you're like, oh, okay, this is heavy. It just was that perfect sweet spot, you know, to have heart but also to be deep, you know. Now we're getting into my 5-star reads of the month. All of my 5-star reads this month were young adult. So you have Charming as a Verb, which I showed you earlier, which is 5 stars. Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry, which is 5 stars, both young adult romances. Then you have these 4 books, which were all 5 stars, and young adult. Black young adult. When I say black fiction is not in the best place right now, I am not talking about black young adult. Black young adult is killing it. It was so, every young adult black book I picked up, I was entranced. I was in it. It was so good. And y'all know how much I don't like young adult, but black young adult just really impressed me. Let's go to first The Black Flamingo by Dean Atada. This book I did not know. I was sitting down here like, here, let me get into this book. But this book took me literally 2 hours to read because it's all written like a poem. The whole entire book is written like a poem. There's literally like 50 words on each page. Like, it's a very quick book. It took me a few hours to read. So this book follows a biracial boy who lives in the United Kingdom who is basically trying to find himself. So he grew up, his father was absent, and his mother she she wasn't like not there, but she wasn't like very, very there. But he always known that he was gay. He always knew that he was gay. He wanted to play with Barbies, and he just knew, like, and growing up, he really didn't have much of an issue with being gay. Like, he hung out with the girls at school. People just kind of let him be up until he got to about high school, middle schoolish. That's when it got kind of like bad. Like, people started to make fun of him for being gay, or like him being different from them pointing out that there was something different from him. Why did he want to hang out with the girls? Why did he want to play with Barbies? He wouldn't get invited to certain sleepovers. I believe that's what it was. Either he got invited to sleepovers because everybody knew he was gay, or he wouldn't get invited after a certain age. It was one of the two. Anyway, so basically he's trying to find himself, but he decides, you know what, once I go off to college, this is going to be different. This is going to be different. None of this is going to happen. So he goes off to college, and he quickly realizes that, oh, I need to find where I fit in, because it wasn't sweet. Everything wasn't sweet. He's trying to find his way. And so he gets into the drag community, and he takes on this identity as the Black Flamingo. So once they are the Black Flamingo, basically they feel like they become themselves. They become actualized. So basically you're following their journey as the Black Flamingo in some of this. And basically that's what every part of this book is. You go from being a child, being in middle school, being in high school, being in college, becoming the Black Flamingo is what this book is about. And it's so beautiful. It really is so beautiful. There are some parts that are a little clunky to me. I feel like some of the race talk is a little underdeveloped, but overall, I enjoyed. There's an ending part in this where they shout out all the queer people in pop culture who has helped them become who they are, and brought tears to my eyes. Loved it. Loved The Black Flamingo by Dina Ta. The next book that I loved, if you are going to write a book about Black people, I would like you to study Elizabeth Escobedo's With the Fire on High. This is how you write a book about Black people, for Black people, discusses Blackness, discusses poverty, discusses issues that Black people face in inner city communities without it being ridiculous, without it being just trauma for the sake of trauma. I hate when people say trauma porn, but without it being that, showing how much you love Black people, you love Blackness, but you also want to discuss the things that Black people go through, but also make an interesting narrative. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. You are following a girl, an Afro-Latina girl who had a baby in her teens, so she's still in high school. She has a child, but she has this desire to be a chef. She wants to be a chef. She wants to be more. She doesn't just want to be a teen mom, but she's okay with being a teen mom. You know, those are her cards that were dealt. So she basically goes to this school, and it's about time for her to graduate. And so she's trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life. And she knows she feels her happiest when she is cooking. And so with the school starts this elective thing where you can take a cooking class, and that is what she does. A new boy just started coming to her school that she's kind of hit it off with, but she's very sheltered because the last boyfriend she had, she got pregnant by. So it's just a lot going on in her life. And so then she's at home. It's her and her grandmother, because her mother is dead and her dad is in South America, I believe. And so she's trying to figure out what all that means. So it's just her and her grandma taking care of her daughter. Every now and then her ex-boyfriend comes and he picks up the baby, but she don't really like to send the baby with him. Not because she has an issue with him. It's just she likes being with her baby. And so there's so many things going on. I have never seen a book just care so much and try to humanize people who so often in popular culture are demonized, ostracized, and just, I don't know, looked down upon, teen mothers, Black people in inner cities, Black people in underfunded schools. It just, we go overseas in this book. It's just so good. I think a lot of Black authors need to study this book, need to study what this book is able to do on the romance front, on everything. It's so good. It's so sweet. 5 out of 5 stars. 5 out of 5 stars with room. With room. Like, this book could have done bad things and it still would have been 5 stars. Like, it's a 5 with room. Like, there's grace in this. Like, it's just so good. It was so good. I enjoyed every moment of reading this book, which was shocking because I've put this book off for so long. And I have not read any of Elizabeth Escovedo's work. I never read The Poet X, and I never read Clap When You Land, and I really don't want to read either. It's weird how you can love a book by an author and be like, this is the only book I ever read from you. I think I'd be fine. But I am going to pick up Clap When You Land. For some reason, The Poet X, it don't my spirit don't want to pick it up, and I don't know what that is, but I am going to pick up Clap When You Land. I will. If I go to the bookstore and see both of them, I'll pick them up. I know I am. Like, Elizabeth Escovedo is very popular, but I love this book. 5 out of 5. Now we have maybe my favorite author writing books right now. Tiffany D. Jackson. Maybe my favorite person writing books right now. Like, Zadie Smith, you might have to move over. You might have to move over, Zadie. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Both of these books, 5 out of 5 stars. You have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. You have Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read Grown first, believe it or not. Grown is about a girl who wants to break into the music industry. She wants to be a musician. She wants to sing. She wants to be a singer. She doesn't come from like poverty per se, but you know, she comes from a working class family. And so basically she meets this record producer, this guy who's very big in the music industry. And he's like, he tells her parents, your daughter is very, very talented. Like, under my wing, she can be something. And so basically her parents are like, no, she's young. She's 17 years old. Like, we're not going to send my daughter to go with you to go make music. Well, our protagonist in this book, she begs. She's like, please, you guys, this can happen. Like, I'll call you guys, like, whatever. So they're like, we're going to do this for our daughter. Our daughter says she wants it. She's serious about this. This is what she wants to do for the rest of her life. We're going to let her do it. So they send their daughter with this producer guy. Quickly, we realize this producer guy is grooming her. Now, you have to first understand this, you have to realize that she was already sneaking off to see the producer guy behind her parents' backs. So she was already like, this is going to be great because the producer guy already fed her lies in the beginning. And so basically, she then goes on tour with him. And things quickly just get dark. Things get dark very quickly. What I appreciate about Tiffany D. Jackson is her willingness to go there. I care about Black girls so deeply. I care about Black girls. And there's so often reading a lot of these books that I read this month. I'm like, how much do these authors care about Black people? A lot of these topics and a lot of these books seem to lack a sense of care, a sense of urgency, a sense of, I have to get this message out here because that's how much I care about this subject matter. Tiffany D. Jackson cares about Black girls. She cares about telling stories about Black girls. She cares about using storytelling to show how easily people dispose of little Black girls, how easily people discard little Black girls, don't believe little Black girls, don't care for little Black girls. And that's the reason why a lot of Black girls end up in situations that they end up in. And that's what she did with Grown. And I loved it. I really, really did. The ending, there's an ending scene in here that's a little clunky for me. It's a little clunky. All of a sudden, she turned into Black Widow. And I was just like, what is this? But it just loved it. So then I was like, Tiffany D. Jackson can't get any better. That was perfect. Then I picked up Monday's Not Coming. I went out of my way because I was like, I got to read some more Tiffany D. Jackson to read Monday's Not Coming. Somehow this book is better than this book, and I love this. Perfect. Monday's Not Coming follows two characters. A girl named Monday who was a friend of our main character, our protagonist. And basically one day, Monday doesn't show up for school, and our protagonist is trying to figure out why her best friend has not showed up for school. So she goes around asking everyone, where is Monday? And she basically goes on this adventure to find Monday. I have to reread this book. I've been itching to reread this book since I finished this book. So you're following 3 timelines. You have before Monday goes missing, before Monday goes missing, and then after Monday goes missing. So you got before, and then the now. So basically, if you understand that the now is the current, then you have before the current, then before the current. And so that sounds confusing, but it's not. It still kind of is. Like, that's why I have to reread it, but like, it's not. Gorgeous, beautiful, iconic, amazing, like a stroke of genius. A stroke of genius, because a lot of people do books like this, and then when you get to like Monday and like you get the reveal and like what happened to Monday and all this stuff, you're like, okay, people have done this. It's the care, it's the intention behind what the story is doing. It's the reason why this story is told this type of way that makes this book so effective. The point is to show how little black girls are paid attention to, and how some black girls are paid attention to and others are neglected. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. And how the difference between what happened to Monday and what happened to you, it's just paper thin. It's your parents. It's as simple as the parents you were born to. Like, all black girls could end up in any situation at any time, because that's how little society cares about black girls. Loved it. Tiffany D. Jackson, you always gonna be famous. Just know you always gonna be famous. Anyways, those are the books that I read this month. Iconic, great, beautiful. Let's go into some things that I watched. I watched Love is Blind Season 2. Didn't love it as much as Love is Blind Season 1. If you want to know my Love is Blind Season 2 thoughts, I made an hour-long video over on my Patreon where I ranked every single character and talked about every single relationship. But yeah, Love is Blind Season 2, always interesting. Always in. Love is Blind is just a great show. It just is. I watched The Tinder Swindler. Now, here's the thing. I'm not one of these people who think I'm above being swindled. I think believing you're above getting swindled is exactly how you can get swindled. But, like, there ain't too many times you gonna ask me for more than like $500 where I'm gonna just say they can come get you. Like, there were moments in The Tinder Swindler where I was like, baby, I don't care about nobody this month that much. They just gonna have to come get you. Like, at some points when he asking for certain amounts of money, I'ma say, baby, your ops can kind of kill you. Like, I don't care at this point. Like, I don't even care that much. I'm not a good enough person to like think I would care this much about a man I just met dying. Sorry, they don't have to come get you. They gonna have to come get you. Like, because like, why are you asking me for money? Like, at some point it gets ridiculous. Like, you asking me? Like, at some point I would just have to be like, even if I didn't think you was scamming me, I would have to be like, you're kind of unserious. Like, you asking me for funds of all people. Like, you gotta have some rich friends. Come on. Then I watched Molly's Game 2017 with Jessica Chastain. Molly's Game 2017 is it was a really fun movie. I love a little scammy movie. Someone scamming, someone getting caught. Like, I love it. And Molly's Game 2017 really did it for me. I enjoy it. It has Idris Elba. It's really, really good. I'm surprised. Like, I don't know. I liked Molly's Game. Maybe I am in the I'm against popular opinion. Molly's Game was cute to me. Molly's Game was really cute to me. Then I watched The Town with Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner, which is basically like a knockoff Set It Off. But I enjoyed it. Not gonna lie, Blake Lively is giving you the worst Boston accent you've ever heard in your life. But like, it was camp. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I enjoyed it. And that's all I watched. Everything else I watched is like a continuation. Oh, Next Level Chef. I finished Next Level Chef with like Gordon Ramsay. The person I wanted to win, obviously I wanted Mariah to win. Like, obviously, if you watch, you know what I'm talking about. But Piet, she's a cute girl. So it was fine. But Next Level Chef is a show with Gordon Ramsay, and like, it's a chef show, and I don't know what to tell you. I don't even know what to tell you. It was a good show. I watched everything in the Gordon Ramsay cinematic universe, and it was good, and it finished, and loved it. But yeah, that's pretty much everything else I watch, I'm like I'm continuously watching, so like nothing to report back on. Yeah, that's the end of this video. I love you guys so much. If you want to watch that Love is Blind video or any video thoughts, you can head over to my Patreon, which is As Told by Kenya. We have a fun time over there. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you